Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Giffen. I'm an agent here at Premier Speakers Bureau, and we have a very special guest with us today, Ben Casnocha. Ben is an author and an entrepreneurial expert. He is currently co-authoring a book with Reid Hoffman, the chairman of LinkedIn, The Startup of You, which is a very exciting project. I'm sure Ben's going to share a little bit with us here in a bit. A few things about Ben. Ben was named by Politics Online as 25 most influential people in the world of internet and politics, which is a very flattering title to have, as well as Business Week has named him America's Best Young Entrepreneur. So Ben, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi Ryan, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Let's get this thing kicked off and started. You've already accomplished a lot in your life, Ben, that most people would dream of accomplishing in their own life. You're 23 years old. This all started about the age of 14. What clicked? What gave you a notion to start down the path that you're on right now?
Well, I loved, for me, the inspiration to be an entrepreneur was around solving other people's problems. As a young kid, I loved solving people's problems. I loved identifying frustration in the world and trying to develop a solution. So whether that was my brothers who wanted candy and selling them candy as a kid, or selling magazines or pens to classmates, and or more sophisticated projects like selling software to large government agencies. I've loved identifying problems in the world and solving them, and I think that's what business entrepreneurship is all about.
Absolutely, finding a way to monetize that.
That's right.
Absolutely. Now, in your new book, I want to kind of give a little flash here. This is The Startup of You. This is going to be released in February. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Excellent.
Super excited about it. We've, as I was working on my entrepreneurial projects, I realized that most people thought of an entrepreneur as someone who kind of starts a technology business in Silicon Valley. A kind of rather narrow definition of what an entrepreneur is, but what I learned in my own experiences was that entrepreneurship is more than just a business idea. There's actually an entire life philosophy and kind of life skill set that entrepreneurs use, but that anyone can use, even if you're not starting a company. So Reid and I have spent the last couple years thinking about what entrepreneurs do when starting companies, what that mindset is, what those skills are in terms of adaptation and building networks and taking risk, and I've tried to universalize that wisdom in a way that anyone can profit from, whether they're a student just starting off in their career or a mid-career professional who's trying to become a more entrepreneurial doctor or a more entrepreneurial lawyer or a more entrepreneurial middle manager in some other industry.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us to our next question. There's two different groups that I've identified in this book that you really target, both students and kind of the working class, the older generation or those that are currently in the workforce. How can each one of these groups benefit from what you have to offer in this book, as well as, what you can bring to their event or to their campus or to their annual conference?
Sure. I mean, the basic premise of the book is that the old career escalator, which was kind of you go to college, you get a degree, you step on the bottom of the escalator, and you kind of put your head down and work hard, and it kind of carries you up the economy as you progressively gain more income and more seniority, and then you step off the escalator at age 65 and coast into Social Security and other safety nets that await you. That escalator is jammed at every level, and all of the career assumptions that go with that have also disintegrated. And that everyone, whether you're just starting off in your career or whether you're kind of stuck in the middle, or if you're later in your career, needs to almost reinvent themselves and learn an entirely new set of skills that will allow them to be competitive in the economy. So what I want to do in 2012 is share with audiences some of the key insights from the book, key insights that are derived from the experiences of some of the most successful Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and some of the most inspiring professionals who are not traditional entrepreneurs, but who have applied these entrepreneurial techniques to transform their career and become an individual business of one and allow them to succeed despite a lot of these old career assumptions and old career rules no longer work in. So to students, I want to bring to them this message that this is not your parents' workforce anymore. This is not your parents' economy. There's a new set of skills. There's not an employer-employee pact. Will you be loyal to them and they'll be loyal to you and you'll work there for 10 years? That's over. You're not gonna get on the job training. It's up to you to train yourself. There's a whole set of new rules that people have to know to be effective. And I think to professional audiences, people who are mid-flight, I want to share with them some stories of professionals in a range of industries, whether it's Hollywood screenwriters or journalists in New York City, who have applied some of these entrepreneurial skills, pivoting in their career, changing industries from print journalism, which has problems, into a more dynamic online context, or a Hollywood screenwriter who was very intelligent about leveraging his network to find new career opportunities. Bring to bear some of those stories and how we all can apply that wisdom to our own careers and accelerate our career progress.
And so that kind of made me think of another question. You mentioned in the book that that every person is an entrepreneur. And when I first read that, I was kind of skeptical. How is that? Explain a little bit about how is every person an entrepreneur?
We open the book with a quote from Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize-winning microfinance pioneer in Bangladesh. Muhammad Yunus said, all humans are entrepreneurs. In the caves, way back when, we were all self-employed, finding food, feeding ourselves. And in the centuries since then, civilization has kind of stamped us as labor. And we've adopted a mindset that someone's supposed to give us a job, train us, tell us what to do, and pull us up that escalator. But in fact, we have all been entrepreneurs, and in our DNA is the will to create and forge a life. And part of the message of the book is we need to return, in a sense, to our entrepreneurial instincts and our entrepreneurial roots, and commit to forging a life, forging an entirely new career that's our own. And then to build off that really raw human instinct. That's what we mean when we say all humans are entrepreneurs. And what we also mean is that the skills that a lot of tech entrepreneurs use, being very flexible and adapting to world changes, and being very savvy about taking risks, and about being very intelligent about building a network. Those are things that we all can do. You don't need to be starting a company, but you in fact need to be thinking about your career as if it were its own business, and you need to be investing in that business and investing in that network over your whole life, just like entrepreneurs do. So what we mean is all humans are entrepreneurs in our instincts, and all humans are entrepreneurs in our potential to use the skills that are currently at work in traditional entrepreneurial circles, but apply them in kind of non-traditional entrepreneurial professions like law or medicine or agenting or what have you.
Every good decision is usually accompanied by hundreds of bad decisions. To try to get a snapshot into the life of Ben, give us an example of one of the worst entrepreneurial decisions that you've ever made.
I think it's a great question because we tend to learn a lot through the things we do poorly. But it's also the case that you can make good decisions that have bad outcomes. Like you can work really hard and be really thoughtful about making a decision, and it cannot work out very well. That doesn't necessarily mean it was the wrong decision.
Right.
So it's a very interesting question. I think one of the big mistakes that I've made in my career have to do with people. Like the best decisions we ever make and the worst decisions we ever make tend to revolve around people. And that's actually why in the start of Review, 20,000 words of the book is devoted to networks and people. In part, my co-author Reed built LinkedIn, which has it's all about networks.
Right.
But also because people are at the core of, productive careers. And I think one mistake I made when I started my company was I was focused too much on kind of traditional qualifications and experience and resume of a person I was hiring, and not enough on interpersonal rapport, not enough on personal fit, not enough on do we get along, can we be friends, do I like the person. And what I learned is that if you're going to be spending every day with someone, you actually do need to like them to an extent. And focusing just on those resume qualifications, you may get someone who's qualified, but you're going to be miserable working with on a day-to-day basis for potentially years.
Sure. And then on the flip side, what was the best entrepreneurial decision that Ben ever made?
I think the best decision I ever made had to do with traveling internationally a few years ago. A few years ago, I spent 3 months on the road and traveled throughout Europe and Asia. And I stayed with readers of my blog in most metropolitan cities I went to. So it was this very cool experience of both international travel combined with staying in the homes of people who felt like they knew me, but who I didn't know myself. And so being exposed to the dynamism of the Indian economy or the Chinese economy or the Japanese economy or the challenges in a place like Italy or France, but also the opportunity there, was enormously rewarding. And also reinforced this conviction, which we express in the book, that, you know, the entrepreneurial mindset and the entrepreneurial skill set is truly a universal, global idea. It's not just an American one. It's not just a Silicon Valley one. It's not just a tech industry one. But people all over the world, I met these people who were incredibly inspiring and incredibly entrepreneurial in whatever career they were pursuing. Mm-hmm. And that was not only inspiring, but helped inform a lot of the work that I've been doing in this last couple of years. Great.
2 last questions. The first being, when you're going to an event to speak, in that person, obviously your attendees there, when they walk away, what do you want them to walk away with? What is your goal for them to take away from your speech?
I think there's 2 goals. It's kind of the 1-2 punch, I think, of an effective event. The first is to be inspired to take the next step. It's remarkable how many people know what they need to do, but don't actually do it. You know, it's like you have the knowledge, but you're just not putting it into practice. You know, we talked about networks and people. Like, a lot of people know they should be investing in their network, but how many people actually take that seriously? Mm-hmm. And so I want to be able to inspire someone in the audience to make them feel empowered that they can take that next step, and that they're inspired to act. And then the second part of the 1-2 punch is some very practical and specific action items for them to do. So they're inspired to do something, and then they know exactly what to do. And it may be a small thing, right? It may be go set up an interesting people fund, something we talked about in the book. You know, go set aside $1,000 next year simply to take interesting people out to lunch and pre-commit that money to go do that as a way to force yourself to invest in your network. Like, maybe it's something as small as that, or maybe it's something much bigger around, you know, taking intelligent risk. But I want to both inspire and then also equip with some specific action items and practical things they can do immediately to start becoming the business of themselves.
Great. And my last formal question for you, who is the most interesting person that you've ever either met or taken out to lunch or interacted with?
Gosh, one person I really am fascinated by is the economist Tyler Cowen, who writes the #1 economics blog on the internet, Marginal Revolution, and is a New York Times columnist and writes pop economics books. He's also not a bad speaker, by the way. I can click him for a sec. But, you know, Tyler is a polymath in every sense of the word, and is broadly interested, and yet applies a very consistent worldview to the different things he thinks about, which is kind of the economic worldview applied to everything from food to the macro economy to technology to career strategy. And so he's a fascinating person, someone who I look to for inspiration, and I think in his own way has inspired some of the ideas behind the Startup Review.
Fantastic. A couple fun questions here. Firefox or Chrome?
That is interestingly political given some of my affiliations. I use both, I'll say.
There you go.
They both have their merits.
Great answer. Fantastic. And then how long were you a MySpace account holder?
You know, I was a MySpace account holder for probably a couple years. I never really engaged. And today my social networks of choice are LinkedIn for my professional identity, Facebook for my social identity and Twitter to broadcast out stuff to people who follow me.
And then my last, final, most important question is roller coaster or simulated ride?
I think I'll have to go for a simulated ride. Although, if the stakes were high enough, I'd probably get on the roller coaster. But I kind of like, virtual reality.
There you go. I like it. Well, Ben, it's been great getting to know you. Thank you for sharing with us about yourself and what the project you're working on with the Startup of You, as well as a book that you've also authored, My Startup Life.
Yep.
So hope those who are watching this can check those out. And in February, the Startup of You, co-authored with Reid Hoffman. You should definitely check that out. Definitely hope you can bring Ben into your next event. And Ben, thank you for taking the time today to be with us.
Thank you, Ryan. See you all soon.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.